Throughout the years, Cobra have made some of the most powerful irons on the market and never afraid to really push the boundaries when it comes to technology. Well, in this video, I've got 3 irons that I want to share with you: the Darkspeed, the Forge Tech X, and the Forge Tech. I'm going to tell you a little bit about these irons today, give you an insight into what Cobra are saying about them, and then I'm going to give you some numbers to see how they're performing for me, and then see which iron might work perfectly for your game. Starting out with the new Darkspeed iron, Cobra very much focused on their driver launch of Darkspeed and used some of the technology to go in the head of this particular iron. So Cobra telling us that their new hollow body construction with this design is creating a slightly thinner and more responsive club face, giving us around 25% more flexion, basically more spring off the club face, allowing us to create faster ball speeds. Now, I think it's great that we create these clubs with more distance, but ultimately we still need some feel, and sometimes with hollow body construction irons we can lose a little bit of that feel. Well, Cobra have addressed this by injecting some microspheres inside the head, which is like a foam, which allows us to be able to dampen that sound and the vibrations, giving us a more pleasing feel from the face. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that these irons have actually been inspired by the wood designs. We're getting a power bridge floating CG weight positioning inside this head, which is covered by that foam that I just spoke about. Now, the idea of this weighting system is to be able to push that CG a little bit lower in the face to enable us to be able to create the best launch possible, which, if we can get some good launch, that means we can get some good stopping power coming into the greens. And just like the Cobra woods, we've got a PowerShell hot face technology gone into these irons, 21% larger than previous models. And the idea of this is they've used artificial intelligence to create basically hot spots across the face, sweet spots. So if we do have those off-centered strikes, we're still going to maintain good ball speeds. And then we've got the Forge Tech X iron, which is for players that want something with maybe a little bit of feel from that forge construction, but also a little bit of game improvement tucked in there as well. Now, Cobra saying that the Forge Tech X iron has a category all by its own. Now remember, hollow body construction with a little bit of foam injected inside the head in order to create those dampening feels off the face. But remember, this is a forged iron and therefore should feel just a little bit softer than probably what we were getting out of that Darkspeed. So just like the Darkspeed, that tungsten weight being pushed low into the head, enabling me to be able to launch that ball nicely up into the air. The slight difference though is that we've got that forged face. It is still the PowerShell face, so it is covering me with those off-centered strikes. And then for those more maybe accomplished players, you have the Forge Tech iron. Cobra saying that they've refined the look of this iron for those players that want something with a slightly smaller profile, a little less offset, but ultimately still want something that's going to perform nicely with that better ball striking. Now, just like the Darkspeed and Forge Tech X, the Forge Tech is a hollow body construction iron and has been filled with that lightweight foam in order to create a little bit of a dampening feel and maybe soften those vibrations coming up through the strike. However, this has been precisioned 5 times over, therefore giving us the ultimate soft feel from the face. Cobra saying that they're giving us ultra forgiveness when we need it, positioning a 20-gram tungsten weight inside the head to give us that optimal launch. But also it's got that PowerShell face. Again, the idea of this is enabling us to be able to get maximum ball speed for those off-centered strikes. But with all this tech, let's now look at how these clubs are performing for me. So one thing to note before we look at these numbers is with the Darkspeed iron, I'm getting 27 degrees of loft with that 7 iron, the same 27 degrees in the Forge Tech X, and then 29.5 degrees out of the Forge Tech iron, which is kind of what I would expect to see from these game improvement irons being slightly stronger in their lofts. If we look at ball speed off the club face from the Darkspeed, 122.7 mile an hour, compare that to the Forge Tech X, at 117.2, and then again with the Forge Tech getting 114.8. So seeing a slight increase in that ball speed when we move into that Darkspeed iron, because there's quite a lot of tech that's been put into this head for that game improvement. Launch-wise, 16.6 out of that Darkspeed, 18.1 out of the Forge Tech X, and 19.1 out of the Forge Tech. Again, that Darkspeed just launching a little bit lower, but we'll come to the actual peak heights in just a moment to see how it all gets on during its flight. And then spin-wise, I'm getting 5,191 revs out of the Darkspeed, 5,387 out of the Forge Tech X, and then 5,661 out of the Forge Tech. So again, just seeing a little bit lower spin out of that Darkspeed, and then slowly increasing as we go through these irons. And I talked about peak heights, 32 yards high with that Darkspeed, compared to 31 yards high out of that Forge Tech X, and then 32 yards high again out of that Forge Tech iron. So even though that Darkspeed launching may be a little bit low, it's still peaking out at pretty much the same window as what we're getting out of the other two irons. And then from a yardage point of view, remember the tech in the Darkspeed, well, it's 174 yards as an average carry. If you compare it to the Forge Tech X, we're getting 167, and then the Forge Tech, which has got a little bit more loft than the other two, is coming out at 161 yards as an average. Now, some great numbers that we're getting from these three irons, and I said at the beginning of this video that Cobra have throughout the years created some of the most powerful game improvement irons on the market, and it hasn't changed with this lineup. If you're looking for something with a little bit of forgiveness and ultimate power, then the technology packed into this Darkspeed is really going to cover you. If you're wanting something with a little bit of forgiveness, ultimate power, and that soft forged feel, then the Forge Tech X works really nicely for you. And then with a little bit more spin from this iron in the Forge Tech, this is going to be for those more accomplished players that want something with a little bit of feel and a little bit of precision. But go and have a conversation with your foremost professional team, book yourself in for a fitting with these Cobra irons, and see which one might work perfectly for your game this season.